Hey everybody, this is Damon with Encap Store and Encapalooza, and welcome to the Pad Life Podcast. Today we'll be speaking with Steve Pike of ReNu Surface Restoration. Steve has built a very successful, high profit, high volume commercial cleaning business that focuses on hospitality in the greater Rochester, New York area. We'll be talking about his business, how he scaled it, and how other cleaners can do the same. We'll be talking about that and a whole lot more. So let's get right into it. Steve, thanks again for joining us on what is the first episode of the Pad Life Podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out today. So let's get into it. We've talked about your previous career in stadium operations management. What did that entail, and how long did you do it for? What did this eventually lead to?
Well, basically, I've had three work lives. My first one was in stadium operations. My second one was in private club management. And then the last 10 years has been in the commercial volume floor care capacity with my current company, ReNu Surface Restoration. So my stadium operations was basically running the concessions, vending, ticket sales, parking for various stadiums. One of them was the Boston Garden. One of them was Pilot Field in Buffalo, New York, AAA baseball stadium. And then the third one was the Milwaukee Brewers Stadium, obviously in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All of them involved managing between 450 and at Milwaukee, I had 850 employees.
Wow.
So yeah, they were challenging to say the least. But basically, managing the staff, department heads. The main thing I got out of the stadium management that I applied to my current operation is efficiency management. We had basically 3 hours, depending on what kind of environment it was. I've worked at hockey stadiums, I've worked at baseball stadiums. We had 3 hours to take as much money off of the customer as we could. Depending upon the event, there would be, a baseball stadium, you had 9 innings, people could get up anytime. Hockey events or basketball events, you only had 2 or 3 times where they would have intermissions. So, the basic gist of it was you had to be as efficient as you could and to get as much money taken in as you could. In the private club management, so I did that for 12 years. Basically, I went to college at the University of Buffalo. I worked in the concession stands and as a porter in the basement or the commissary operations, and when I went to college. And then when I graduated college, I asked if I could be in the management training program. And a week later, I was sent to the Boston Garden, where I was the basically assistant manager in charge of purchasing. And my job in that was to get the stadium set up for the day. And then eventually I came to Buffalo and opened up the new stadium there and was in charge of all the concessions and spending and did that for 7 years. And then for a year, I also worked as a sales coordinator for their group sales. I went to school for marketing, so that was a natural fit. And then after that, I went to work again in Milwaukee, managing that stadium for the Brewers. The baseball strike hit in 1994-95. They laid off all of my employees, all my department heads. And at that time, I sort of soured on the whole stadium operations mode. It's many hours, 7 days a week, 100 hours a week. And again, I did that from the age basically 2021 till I was 32. At that point in time, I moved back to Buffalo area, took a job at the Country Tennis Club of Rochester, which was a member-owned tennis club, 700 owners, 2,500 members, 23 outdoor clay courts, 9 indoor courts, 2 pools, operated, owned by the members, operated by a 15-person board, which was all volunteers. Basically, I ran the club for all the members, did everything from marketing, operations, court maintenance, food service, tournaments, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I basically ran the whole club for the members so that they could come out and play tennis.
And
But
in
I,
that role, you learn more, or that you learn, but that included more of a sales aspect to it, right? So in the stadium management, you were concerned with, obviously getting revenue, selling the food and everything else in the concessions. And then in the club management, it was that plus membership and et
yeah,
cetera,
so the
correct?
stadium part of things, what I learned was what you offered in terms of the menu and where you offered it and how you offered it made a big difference in how much people spent.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I worked for some stadiums where all they sold was popcorn, peanuts, beer, soda, and they ran everything by the numbers. And you'll see some companies that run everything just by the numbers. It's all based on payroll, percentage. Then I also worked for the Bison Baseball, which was a minor league stadium that opened in 1988. Back in the day, it was the first stadium that really touted its menu and offerings. We had specialty stands all over the place, carnival stands, Italian stand, basically everything you could think of. So what we found by doing that is our menu offerings encourage people to get up 3 or 4 times a game and go buy more food. Now they were higher cost. We certainly spent more money in payroll, but we saw that we made more money because people got up to spend more money.
It was almost like a food court, sort of, in a way. You had a variety of
It was,
offerings
yeah, there was,
besides just peanuts and
it,
hot dogs.
exactly. We were one of the first stadiums to have a food court. But then we also found, by offering more items throughout the stadium, and also, for example, back in the we would put portables out. So we had 15 or 18 portables throughout the main concourse. We offered everything from kosher hot dogs to cotton candy to whatever you could think of, because again, the more things we offered, the more money that people spent.
Sure, that makes sense.
So I learned in that instance that how you marketed, how you serviced, definitely affected how people would spend money. I worked at other stadiums where all we did was the simple menu, and I learned there how to manage by expenses and that kind of situation. So when I got to the tennis club, a whole different thing, member owned, and it was designed to manage based on the member experience. But we also had it was a nonprofit, so we didn't have a lot of money to spend. And what I learned there was how to market and how to gain membership without spending money. And so how would you do that? Well, one of the things that we did was we offered a lot of events. So again, and that's where I say it's sort of how I relate this to what I did in my business was, there's not a lot of people playing tennis out of the general population. So to waste money on advertising on a general ad campaign out to the world where there was, not many tennis players was just not going to be efficient. And we just didn't have the money to spend to do that. So, similar to what a carpet cleaner does, this is before we had Facebook and those kind of things where you could target things. But a lot of carpet cleaners don't have a lot of money to spend, like especially beginners, you're opening your business, you just don't have all that money to throw into marketing. So at the tennis club, what I did was the first thing I saw was we had to get people into our club. because once they saw the club, they would be willing to join the club. We were a member-owned club with an initiation fee. We had clay courts as opposed to hard courts. You can go play at any hard court in a town or a school for free. Well, we had clay courts that you had to pay a premium to play on. So how are we going to get people to do that? Well, you had to show them the value first. So I really equated that a lot to, how I started my business, was that I had to show people the value. So to me, I created this system at the tennis club where I got everybody's email who played tennis in the Rochester, New York area that I could. How did I do that? Well, people all signed up for interclub leagues. So all the clubs had these interclub leagues that we all gave our courts to, and all the members could play on. Also, I did a lot of non-member events where people could invite their friends to come play in an event at the tennis club as a non-member. And then we actually made money by allowing non-members to come play. And they got to play at the club, see the club, have fun, see all the value. So over the couple of years that I did this in the beginning, I was there for 18 years, but I was able to build up over 9,000 email addresses for people who played tennis in the Rochester, New York area. So what did I do with that list? Well, I didn't want to make it overly salesy, so I sent out monthly emails. And what I did was basically shared information about the tennis scene in Rochester, but also passively let people know about what was going on at the tennis club. Invited them to participate in tournaments that we allowed non-members to play in. Also allowed them to play in non-member events and those kind of things. So in doing that, when you would get people to come in, that's when you could market the club. Get them on every tournament we did. We got all their email address and all that stuff. So anybody who entered in a tournament, we would get that information. Anybody who entered into a social, and then again, that's how we marketed. So we spent very, very little amount of money.
Essentially, a newsletter you created that kind of served also as a sales tool in a way.
Correct.
Indirectly.
Correct. And
Awesome.
That's what we used to manage. And again, it was basically the same thing as offering demos to my current, commercial clients. They got to see the club before you had to pay for it.
So these two career paths that you took early on definitely impacted your cleaning business.
Yeah, again, when I started the cleaning business, so I basically bought a package from the Master's Touch.
I was gonna say really quick, what led you actually, before we get into that,
Sure.
What led you to start a cleaning business? What happened at the country club or at that point in your career in your life that made you decide to start a cleaning business?
Well, so I spent 12, as I told you guys before, I spent 12 years managing stadiums, and I loved it. It was part of a sports environment, lots of employees. It was basically a fraternity type of environment. I was 24 years old, overseeing 450 employees, and we'd work long days. It was fun. People were coming to these events to have fun. Baseball games, football games, whatever, hockey games, concerts. So there's a lot of enjoyment with that. But eventually, working that amount of hours, dealing with employees, you experience some level of burnout. And I wasn't making the amount of money that I felt I was worth. And so I moved into the country club position. I was paid very well there, but I worked for 18 years. It's a member-owned situation. It's very political. The first 12 years were like a honeymoon. The last 6 years, I had people getting on the board just to make my life miserable. So at that point, I was age 50. I had worked my whole life making other people lots of money. My wife and I were having these discussions about what did we want out of life, and I wasn't around a lot. So I always wanted to open my own business. I was looking online. I saw a video for Thailand grout cleaning on monster.com. And having managed stadiums with, 30 or 40 concession stands and 40 bathrooms in a stadium, and then having managed a country club with clay courts that have dust and clay dust all over the grout. I was never able to get the floors cleaned. I didn't even know how to get them cleaned. Like everybody else, I thought you just take a deck brush and scrub, or you've heard the stories about people taking toothbrushes and scrubbing their grout. So when I saw that video, I was like, oh my God, and I've always been, felt I was able to market or sell. I had gotten some confidence in my years working at the tennis club, because I handle all the membership and sales and marketing for that. So I always felt I could do it. I just needed the avenue. I needed the tool. How was I going to make this money? And one of the problems that we all have in looking to start our business is operating capital. So I never had enough money, I felt, to start a business. I always felt I would have to do it while still working, and it's just extremely difficult. I had 3 other opportunities to start businesses through my first 50 years, but I just never pulled the trigger, because I was like, how can I manage this business while I'm still working my current job? So
Sure.
So I made the decision to leave the tennis club, and 3 weeks later we had started this program. I saw the video. I started talking to Masters Touch. I dealt with one of their sales guys, and they basically convinced me this would be a good fit for me. And 3 weeks later, we were in Arizona starting our training. So if you want, I'll discuss a little bit about the Masters Touch program.
Yeah, I think it'd be insightful. A lot of people are in situations similar to yours early on, where they're reluctant to leave their job, or they left their job, they're not sure what to do. They look at franchises. They might look at an OxyFresh, or who knows, some of the smaller franchises that are out there. So
Right.
yeah, talk about Masters Touch and what that meant to you early on, and how it impacted the first couple of years of your business.
Sure. So Masters Touch was basically I would call it an unfranchise.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a program where I would start you in a business. You paid an upfront fee, but you did not have any royalties ongoing. So there was no marketing fees. There was no chemical fees or whatever, any restrictions in that. They certainly did offer you to use their chemicals, which I did start. There was a significant investment up front for me, because I bought the van, I bought the wrap, I bought the training. I mean, for me, I wasn't going to go work for someone else as a carpet cleaner or a tiling grout cleaner to learn. It just wasn't what I was going to do. But again, I never had enough capital. But by that point, I had saved some money. So my initial investment was about $88,000. And that included the van, truck mount, equipment, training.
In $2012 or
thereabouts. 2014.
$2014. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure that would be more now. So interestingly enough, Masters Touch is no longer in business. And one of the reasons for that is they didn't truly vet the people that were buying the packages. So, there are a number of Masters Touch guys out there that are successful. Most of us that became successful was because we could do sales. And I would tell anybody who gets involved in this business, if you can't do sales, you're going to have a tough time.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're going to get involved in the commercial end of things. So, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of guys go into residential, because they can do things to bring people to, like ads, they can pay for, those kind of things. Whereas in commercial, you're going to get a lot of your customers are going to come from your own sales ability.
Yeah, you have to be proactive. You have to go out there and talk to people, and not be afraid to
correct
make first contact.
We'll get more into that
Right.
But the function of Master's Touch for me was they gave me the opportunity, and I've always thanked them for that, because honestly, I would have never gotten into this business if that wasn't an opportunity for them, through them, because I just wasn't going to go work for someone else. I wasn't going to buy an existing business. Obviously, if I knew everything I knew now, I probably would potentially approach it differently. But there's no way I'm going to know everything I know now without, someone to help me get started, which is one of the reasons why I have sort of dedicated so much of my time, trying to help and encourage other cleaners.
You've done a
Is
great job of that. Absolutely. Let me ask you.
well, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
So, anyways, the Master's Touch thing, got me started, and it wasn't, perfect. I mean, it was a slow grind. I, I think one of the things you were going to ask me about why I started, how I started,
Yeah. Before you do that, though, let me say, Master's Touch focused primarily on hard surface, correct?
Yes. So their marketing angle was tile and grout and hard surface.
And that appealed to you because you were familiar with in commercial with the stadiums that you had managed and even the country club where maintenance was an issue.
Yeah, like I said, the first thing I saw was, oh my God, tile and grout, like I could never get it clean. You know, I at the time, again, 10 years ago, I had, Stanley Steamer was, I mean, carpet cleaning. And honestly, I did not want to be a carpet cleaner. Like part of this was like, are you going to tell people you're a carpet cleaner? That just wasn't what appealed to me at the time. I thought that in my mind, image wise and competitive wise, and I knew I wanted to go into commercial, not residential, that the tile and grout was going to be that way to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, a lot of cleaners, like you said earlier, and we've talked about many times, many conversations, they focus primarily on residential. I think part of that is that they aren't aware of the commercial space, or they don't really think about the commercial space and the opportunities that it presents. Even cleaners that have been in the business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we hear about them like, oh, I'm finally going to do more commercial, or I need to pursue more commercial. Um, were you confident early on that you'd be able to build a book of commercial business? Like, was there any hesitation? Any?
No, I mean, I was probably overconfident, because I thought that, oh my God, look at this incredible equipment and results, and this is going to be, a lot easier than it actually turned out to be. Um, I mean, I think a lot of guys who get into the industry start as a tech, and if you start off as a tech, you start off working for a company that's probably doing residential. So
Mhm.
that's what you learn. A lot of the guys in residential, they like getting the money right away. And again, a lot of it is
Cash flow
involved.
matters, definitely.
What's that?
Cash flow can matter, definitely, if you're coming
It
in
certainly
short
can.
money.
It
Right.
certainly can. And one of the things I've told many people I've talked to, the one of the biggest reasons people fail is they don't have enough operating capital. If
Correct.
you don't have the money, it's going to take you a while to build up your business. So if you don't have the money to cover that, or maybe you need to work part time. Maybe you do it part time while you're working another job, or maybe your spouse needs to be able to cover your expenses. But for me, again, I had built up a little bit of money. I looked at it as a 2-year plan, and I just knew I had to. I mean, honestly, all I figured I had to make my first year was $60,000, which is not a lot of money, and so going into it, it still was stressful. I mean, we did $2,000 our first month, we did $4,000 the next month, and my wife was looking at me like, what have you gotten us into? But about the 6th month in, we landed a major account. It was about a $20,000 a year account. one of our hotels. And at that point, as soon as that hit, we knew, like, okay, we're going to be okay. Like, we still didn't think we were going to be, rich or retire to the French Riviera, but we knew that we're going to be a legitimate business, and it just grew from there. So definitely, I totally identify with new cleaners getting into the business. It's definitely, it can be a confidence and belief is a huge part of your starting. You've got to understand that it's going to be a process. It's going to take time. You got to keep positive. You got to keep grinding. One of the big things and the reasons why I always try to push people for commercial, is that while you're waiting for those leads to come in from the residential, from all your ads or Google or Facebook, you can be going out and meeting people in the business world. So that doesn't mean you still can't do your other residential stuff. But a lot of people I talk to, I'm like, what did you do today? Oh, nothing. I'm just, I'm slow. I'm like, well, did you go out and do anything about that? Well, no, I'm waiting for blah, 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 blah. So that's a big thing about commercial is it doesn't cost you anything to go out and give your business card out or brochure to some local businesses and introduce yourself. But
it takes confidence. It takes discipline.
Yep.
There's certain things I think a lot of cleaners that they're reluctant to do or don't know how to do. And I think that's
true. Well, it's definitely a confidence thing. I mean, I wasn't, I may come across a certain way, in my post. Bless you. There's my CFO in the background.
Absolutely.
So, when I first started, I used to worry about every single word, and I got to be careful what I say, and that they're going to make this sale or they're going to choose to work with me based upon what I say, and it's really not important. All you basically need to do is be confident, be comfortable, present yourself in a professional manner, walk in, explain, introduce yourself, explain what you do, and then ask them if they need help and go from there. And there's a lot more to it than that, but once you understand that that's the process and that's really all it takes to start the process, you start to make it a lot easier. And after you do that, 50, 100, 150 times, you get a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident. If you can't sell or talk to people or approach people, again, this isn't the right thing for you, and that's okay. You know what? Go hire someone to do it. It doesn't have to be you. Pay someone else to do it for you. But a lot of the guys that have listened to what I've said over the years, it's not rocket science. Most people who try to do commercial don't fail. They give up. They're not consistent. They fall back on their comfort level, which is residential, and which is fine, like I said. But then all of a sudden, residential dies off, and they're like, oh, "What am I going to do? I'm slow." So one of the things that I do in talking to a lot of different people, and trying to get involved and help at Encapalooza and at different events, is to explain to people you can add commercial to any kind of business you have, whether you're a full residential business, whether you're a slow residential business, or whether you're a full commercial business. There's ways to approach it. So
absolutely. I think something I hear a lot, and I think you do as well. We'll get a phone call from a cleaner, and I get this regularly. And let's say, I need to start doing more commercial work. I need to, get some lists of businesses to pursue, et cetera, et cetera. And my first question always is how's business right now? Are you busy? And they'll always say no. And what happens is the next week, when their phone starts ringing again with residential, or they get some residential work coming in, they abandon whatever that idea was at the moment. Yep. And like you said, they fall back into the comfort zone. I think that's a problem. I think it really takes accountability and some sort of discipline and structure to build that commercial business, especially if you're already doing residential. And I think that's probably one of the harder things for some of the more established cleaners to do, is to really sit there and say, I got to make time. I got to allocate time. I got to do this on a regular basis. I got to consistently, whether it be 1 day a week or 2 day a week, 8 hours a week, whatever, how you figure it out, but do it again and again and again to make that commercial program work for you.
Well, I agree with you 100%, because like I just told you, people don't fail. They don't
Fail to plan.
they don't give up. I mean, they just give up or they don't do it. And I mean, so you're right. It's exactly what happens. I think what people need to decide is, what approach do they want? And, again, if you're a new cleaner out there, like I would tell you, just go after commercial.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I'm only commercial. I mean, I do some residential because I have clients who ask me to, or I have friends. But by and large, residential is a big pain in the ass for me. It always ends up, that's the jobs I have all the problems on. But I'm not saying that's not a way to go. I, am a little bit different than a lot of the other gurus, or people trying to make money off of cleaners and get you to buy into their programs, because I'm trying to show you guys what'll work. And again, it doesn't cost you any money to do this. You don't have to go spend money with a guy who's going to charge you $1,700 or $1,800 a month to get you leads and on Messenger or bots or whatever. I'm not gonna, what you do within my stuff that I try to show you guys is, you don't need to have an SEO presence. You don't need to spend all that money.
Yeah, we're going to actually get into that more here in a few minutes. But very quickly, I do want to ask you, looking back at those first couple of years with Master's Touch, what did you learn from that? What would you have done differently?
I mean, I don't think I would have done anything differently because, so what I did was, the first year I started, I might only produce 2 days a week, and the other 5 days a week, I was out canvassing customers. And then year 2, I might be cleaning 3 days a week. And the other 4 days a week, I was out canvassing customers. In year 3, I probably cleaned 4 days a week. And the other 3 days, I was out canvassing customers. So, I had a purpose and a plan that I was going to do commercial only. And I didn't care if I was busy 5 days a week, because my goal was long term that I would work 5 days a week or more. But rather than doing $150 or 3 rooms for $99, right away from the beginning, my average ticket was $1,000. Over the years, it's become 2,000, or it can be 3,000. But that's not going to happen for everybody, because as we can talk about more, the way I've set up my business is a little different than probably what other people will do. I'm willing to travel. I'm willing to go out of town for a night or 2 nights a week. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. But
And you focused on, primarily in hospitality, which is going to be generally larger jobs in general compared to.
again, yes, I focused on large ticket. Like I didn't, again, part of what I looked at was, if and I also have told people this in a lot of the presentations I've made over the years. I go after a multi-unit. I don't go after, Dr. Smith, the dentist. I go after Rochester Dental Group, because they have 8 locations. So if I get their one location, I get all 8 locations. So, one of the things to me is that's an immediate growth potential. I do a ton of hotels. One of the reasons I do that is, when I was lucky enough my first few months in, where I got one hotel, and just by stopping in, and that guy loved us, and he's like, "Hey, I've got 3 other locations. Will you do them?" I'm like, "Sure." I did those. Then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I've got 8 other locations, but they're an hour away. Would you do those?" Yeah, I'll do those. So, all of a sudden I had 11 hotels. I met a gentleman in the Home Depot aisle, and he was looking at grout sealer, and they looked confused, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have any questions?" And he's like, "Yeah, we want to seal our grout." And I was like, "Okay, well, you really don't want to use Home Depot grout sealer." I said, "If you're really interested, I'll be happy to give you some of my product. You guys can seal your grout with it." And I said, "But it has to be clean first. Is your grout clean?" And he goes, "Well, we actually just opened up a new hotel, and we're having problems getting the grout clean." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Well, would you help us?" I was like, "Of course." So he said, "Hi, okay, that's great. Hi, my name is Nyan. I am the purchasing manager for a 26 unit hotel chain. Would you mind stopping at this location?"
No
So,
problem.
of course, I mean, totally lucky, but I went in there and solved their problem. They actually had a construction dust issue, and we ended up. It was a brown grout with. It was basically white. It was just packed with dust. We went in and we cleaned it, and even after we cleaned it, it still had a little bit of in the light, it would have a residue or haze, and so we color sealed it, and which was not fun, and solved their problem. And the next thing you know, we didn't have 11 hotels; we had 37 hotels.
That's awesome.
And from there, we just kept going and going and going. But and again, a lot of this stuff sounds incredibly simple, but we only have so much time to market and spend our time, especially people with kids and responsibilities. So a lot of this stuff again is very simple, but if you do it and you commit to it, it's going to pay off over time.
Absolutely. Now, early on, hard surface was a big part of what you did, obviously through Master's Touch. You did a lot of tile and grout, as you mentioned earlier. You had a truck mount. You had a big gulp, or you have a big gulp.
At a
Not
what?
a lot of cleaners can afford. Isn't it called a big gulp? The truck mount uses sapphire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So when I first started back then, it was a Sapphire HS 2500, which
Right.
is a 2500 psi truck mount made specifically for tiling grout.
Right. Right. So a lot of cleaners, they can't afford a truck mount starting out. They're going to use a portable, or they're going to go low moisture, which we'll get into later on. Um, what would be your advice to those cleaners that want to start in commercial, which I agree with you 100% is the avenue to pursue, but they simply don't have a truck mount? How do they approach that?
So one of the things, that Damon, you have discussed with many beginning cleaners, and and I have as well, is you don't have to go hit the home run. You don't have to go do a hotel. You don't have to do a huge facility. Um, One of the things is to have a plan and to build up over time. So if you're a small, owner operator, just yourself, or you and an employee, I think a great opportunity to go after is medical facilities, or accounting
Assisted
offices,
living.
lawyers'
Yeah.
offices, those kind of things, because you can go clean those yourself or with one other person, um, and get them done in a few hours, and you can make 500 to $1,000. So it's all. This is why I say, in terms of what I've looked at with a number of cleaners, is let's talk about what you're looking for. Do you want to work Monday to Friday? Are you willing to work weekends? Are you willing to work nights? That's going to sort of help you figure out how you're going to approach it. Um, Certainly don't have to start off with the van and truck mount. I'm just saying, if you want to get involved in a large, commercial area, or you really want to get involved in tiling grout, you're going to need a truck mount. I don't believe in the commercial world you can low moisture tiling grout effectively. You can certainly do some jobs, but if you're going to try to do 90 guest rooms at a hotel, it just doesn't make any sense. But if you're going to go do a small office, yeah, there's times where I have low moisture tiling grout. I don't want to drag hoses up 350 feet to do a small, ice area. So yeah, it's not saying I won't do it, but
Well, it's situational, right? It
it's
depends
all
on
situational, and
right.
a lot of this depends on, how much you want to make per hour, how much you need to make per hour.
Hmm.
And, for example, when I first started, it was me and my wife. And, if so for the first year and a half, a lot of it was just us two. And honestly, a lot of it was just me. So if I was going to go clean, a $500 job, I would just do it myself because I had nothing else to do that day. And, but as we got busier, we realized, look, we're going to need employees. And again, everything is progression. But if you plan properly and you sort of have a plan going forward, that's going to help you a lot, because right now I see a lot of people just throwing a lot of things at the wall and seeing what'll stick because they just want to make money. They just need money.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of cleaners go. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot, but the ones that we talk to oftentimes, it's very much impacted by what they're doing that week. And
Yeah.
there's no like, I'm planning for the next 90 days, the next 180, the next year, so on. And I think that's a problem for many cleaners.
Well, it is. It's not just for cleaners; it's for many, many businesses.
No, but speaking to our industry, but yes, of
Well,
course.
definitely. Look, let's face it. A lot of people that are involved in the cleaning industry aren't experienced business people. So the ones that you see that um, generally uh, graduate to larger operations are people who have business experience or who gain that through their learning. So one of the things that, again, the reason why I feel the stuff that I present to a lot of the cleaners out there is that I'm basically a glorified owner operator. I'm not Steamy Concepts or Stanley Steamer or whatever, who have 10 vans and 50 employees and all that stuff. I'm an owner operator that's glorified, and there's nothing against those other guys. They're great at what they do, but most of the people listening to this podcast are not either in a position to do those kind of operations, or honestly want to, or qualified to. Now maybe I could have managed an operation with 10 vans and 50 employees, but I don't want that. That's just not what I ever wanted. I can, do what I do, control the quality of my operation with 2 vans and 3 to 4 employees, which I think any of us, most of us out there could do. And it doesn't require a ton of capital, to do that. So that's why I keep trying to, spread my word and gospel of commercial carpet cleaning and tile and grout cleaning and sealing to the masses, is just to offer a different perspective, a different opportunity for you guys to consider. Because I think it's easier for you guys to replicate than a lot of the other programs that other people might be trying to sell to you.
Absolutely. What brought about carpet? How did you make that discovery, and what sort of impact did that have on the business?
So again, I started off like everybody. I would do just about anything and everything to pay the bills. I started off with just tiling grout, but I soon learned that I needed to do other things and be open to other things, to make enough money to cover my bills. So we did have the capability to hot water extract, and we had all the equipment. We just didn't want to get in that realm. But what ended up happening was that our clients, we'd start getting into the hotels and doing the tile and grout, and they'd say, well, will you do the carpets? Well, of course we're going to help them, right? So we started off with hot water extraction, and again, a lot of it was me and my wife in the beginning, and we would be extracting 10 or 15,000 square feet of carpet a day, and I just was like, there's no freaking way I'm going to do this every day of my life. This is ridiculous. It was just demanding, and I was 50 years old. She could do it every day, but I knew it wasn't what she wanted to do. So we did it while we did, but I just realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. So we also did a number of other things our first couple of years. We did pressure washing. I got an opportunity to do a lot of work with Walmarts, and we would pressure wash and do gum removal for their whole front of the stores, which was like 16 to 20,000 square feet. But that was nights and travel. And again, over that time, I started to hire employees. And so you had to deal with all that. And I also did soft washing. I did odor remediation with chlorine dioxide. And of course, we'll talk about that later, but I got involved in ceiling tiling grout with RexPro. So, a lot of what I did in those days, Damon, was to solve problems for my customers. And that's a big way that we grew, was problem solving. But as I got busier over the years, I cut out the services that I didn't want to do and got down to our core services, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Now, what services did you drop?
Well, let me get first, if you don't mind, let me get into my VLM and how that started. I was hot watering some hotels, and I did a hotel about an hour and a half away from us, and I hot watered it. And a couple weeks later, I got a call back from them and said, hey, we've got 6 rooms that the spots came back. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, can you fix it? And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, oh God, it's 2 hours away. It's 6 rooms, and it was a microtel. And microtels, if you're familiar with them, are, back in the day, 10 years ago, were a step above, a large step, but we're a step above red roof, cannelage. They're nicer, but they were home to construction guys who wanted a cheap place to stay, and they got the rooms pretty bad, grease and whatever from the jobs that they were doing. So what would end up happening is the hotels would treat those stains with their own products, and we would clean them, and so there were some wickback issues. So I actually started doing research on how to deal with wickback. And actually, this is before Encap Store and Pad Life. And so I actually was on the cleaners carpet page, and I put a post up there, and Joel Riggs, shout out to Joel, responded to me, and he mentioned about the Cymex, and that's where I started to research encapsulation. And so I bought a Cymex. I went back to those rooms. I cleaned the 6 rooms, and I did a video of it. And I'll be damned, those spots went away and never came back. So I reached out to that hotel group and said, okay, here's the deal. We've got 2 options. I can hot water your facilities in the future, but if there's wickback spots, you're going to pay me to come back, or I can low moisture them, and I will guarantee that the spots don't come back. And that's how I converted those first 11 hotels that I did to low moisture. So that's where I took off from low moisture. I did a lot of Cymexing for several years, and then again, I kept looking into it, and my next step was to get some Trinities, and which I use, and I got some eco machines, which worked great, although they were had some issues. And then I've also gotten some vibes. So I've tried just about every machine out there, and but the key to VLM for me is, and the reason why I have been able to transform my business is because of VLM. I could never do it if I was trying to hot water all this commercial carpet that we're doing. We're doing thousands and thousands of square feet a day. We're doing it every day, and I could never do it if I had to hot water it. So it's a production issue. And the other thing I've done is I've went after customers that type of service is a benefit to them and serves their needs better than hot water extraction.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a little picture of the video of the Cymex in action, actually. I mean, a great machine. I think every low moisture cleaner should have one in addition to an OP machine. And, there's different tools in low moisture, but the Cymex is a critical piece of that, as you're aware. So my question earlier was to be, what services did you drop as you focus more on commercial carpet?
Yeah. So, what we ended up getting more involved in was so I tell a lot of people this over the years, tiling grout is a huge competitive advantage for commercial cleaning. VLM is a huge part of it as well, because that's where I make, in terms of the production, you can clean 20,000 square feet of carpet VLM, and make $3,000 to $6,000, and if you hot watered that would take 2 days. I can do that in 6 hours or 5 hours, and I'm already on to the next job. And again, now there's certain jobs you probably need to hot water, but most in a commercial setting you don't. So what I realized, early on through what we were doing, was a lot of my competition did not do a good job at tiling grout. And a number of other people left the carpets wet, or couldn't produce in a timely manner. It took them 3 days to clean a hotel where it takes us 1 day. So as soon as we sort of saw all that, we said, you know what, why do we need to be wasting our time on pressure washing gum and concrete at midnight, 3 hours away? So we dropped all of our pressure washing. Even though I was doing quite well with it, it just didn't fit where we wanted to, for my employees' benefit. And, when you could make more money locally than travel, that was a big part of it. So we just sort of went into our 3 core areas. We dropped all the services that were not a part of that core. And the core basically came down to tiling grout cleaning, tiling grout sealing, and then, I would include the VLM, obviously, was the next part of that. And that would include carpet, and that would also include upholstery. And that's mainly what we got into. And we just kept pushing that with our client base and all the new people that we were dealing with.
You mentioned sealing as one of your 3 core services. Rex Pro is the sealer and coating product you use. Tell us what kind of impact that had on your business, and how did you discover it, and basically how much has that grown over the years for you?
So Master's Touch, I talked to you about that before. One of the things about Master's Touch, and I would give them credit for this, is that when you went through the program, they talked to you about the cleaning, but they also talked to you about the sealing. So they had, interestingly enough, their sealers in the beginning were the normal, water-based grout sealer, and then they had another sealer company that they promoted. You had to go to training. It was expensive, and and there were failures. And I understand a lot of people are apprehensive about sealing of tiling grout. There's a lot of information out there, misinformation. Old school cleaners who don't really know what the new technology is, so they'll get on the, we see it all the time. I'll post a video of one of my sealing, and they're like, "You can't seal tiling grout," and the reason being is that many people have dealt with issues of people who've sealed tile and grout with the wrong product. Wax. Like a lot of janitorial companies will put wax in their customers' bathrooms because they think it's going to be easier to maintain. Well, wax is horrible. The other product that is out there is urethanes. Urethanes. Because they can chip, peel, or yellow over time. There may be some out there that are good, but I can tell you I've run into a number, and I've tried a number, and they've never held up. I came across a RexPro. It used to be called EcoSmart, and I came across it from another cleaner who mentioned it to me, and I reached out to them. And they sent me some product. I tried it on a job, and I found that it was easy to work with. That job was a demo for Wegmans supermarkets here in Rochester, New York. And at the time, it was a decent job, $3,000 or $4,000 job for 2 bathrooms. It sort of sat there. 2 years later, one of the VPs went and used that bathroom, and he was like, fell in love with it. The reason why no one saw that bathroom was because it wasn't in the customer bathrooms, and it wasn't in the employee bathrooms. It was in a separate set of bathrooms that were off of like one of the restaurants that they operated. So it was hardly used by anybody from Wegmans corporate. So this gentleman, regional VP, used the bathroom, evidently, loved it, called up and said, what is this? This looks great. So that was 2 years after our initial demo. And the next thing you know, I was doing, we ended up doing 47 stores of theirs, both their customer and their employee bathrooms.
I remember that. That was a big year for you.
That was 2019, and I did about $360,000 in 1 year with just cleaning and sealing bathrooms. Took a whole year to do it. And interestingly enough, I was so busy doing that I really wasn't able to market my other core group, which was hotels, during that year.
Yeah, that was a very busy time for you. You're doing a little bit of night work, but the money you made definitely.
It was a lot of night work. It was all night work for that. But when you're making $500 to $700 an hour, it's worth it, because we would clean, seal the bathroom in 4 hours, and we were making $3 to $4 grand. So it was worth it. Of course, we had to travel to do it, and but luckily, the thing about this is you got to find staff that's willing to do what you need them to do. So I've always been able to do that. I've been upfront when I've interviewed them. I've since, over the years, become much more, I pay them more, and I also give them a per diem now, which I didn't do back then. But you learn, and you got to do what it's going to do to compensate your employees to make it worth their time.
So when you're applying Rex Pro, what are you charging and what is your hourly average?
So again, that would, just like any other cleaning, it's going to depend on square footage. I a lot of times I use Rex Pro as a tool to get clients because no one else does it in my area, um, or again, the stuff that they use is not as good as what I'm using. So, but generally, I'm going to be $2 to $2.50 a square foot. But I'm usually doing thousands of square feet. Like I'll either be doing a whole lobby area. I'll be doing 80 guest rooms. So it's all based on square footage. But I try to get, in the commercial world for cleaning volume, tile, and grout, you're going to be around 50 cents a square foot. In my experience, to get, the volume accounts. And then, I try to get 5 times that for the ceiling. So if I'm ceiling, it's generally going to be $2 to $2.50 a square foot. But it all depends. Like for Wegmans, I cleaned, so many bathrooms, so many areas. So I was around $2 a square foot for that. But that included walls, it included floors, and like I said, it was a $360,000 contract. If I go do a small bathroom, I might be $10 a square foot. But generally, I can tell you I'm between $500 and $1,000 an hour for doing this. Generally 500 to 700, but it just depends on the size of the job.
Sure, absolutely. You've had some very, very big revenue growth since 2020. I mean, you had a steady rise, out of the gate, obviously, from $60,000 goal your first year to what you're doing today. Talk to us about that growth and where you're at then and where you're at now. If you can even break it down by year, that'd be great, if possible. If not, that's
Yeah,
okay.
so we started in 2014, February of 2014, and we did 100,000 or slightly more than that in 10 months. Year 2, we did about 225. And then we really kept growing at about 100,000 a year. And in 2019, we hit that contract with Wegmans and we did over 700,000, in our 5th year. So, but we jumped up quite a bit. We might have been, I don't know, 450, 500,000 in 2018. And then COVID hit in March of 2020, and the whole world went to a different level. So we didn't even know if we were going to have a business once COVID hit, because so much of our business was commercial and hotels, which were all, in the commercial world, all the employees were working from home, and hotels were all empty. So we were really, really, really concerned. We survived that year selling hand sanitizer, and I spent that year. I took the PPE money, and so one of my guys that worked for me had done some placement for adults with disabilities or learning disabilities for the Arc of Monroe, and so he had experience calling on businesses. So I said, look, I'm going to pay you to just call on businesses for the year. And he spent that year just calling everybody, offering them, information about our company, finding out who the decision maker was, offering the hand sanitizer. And I sold hand sanitizer to all my existing clients. And also I spent that year trying to get new clients by offering them the hand sanitizer. So if you guys remember that during COVID, Purell only gave hand sanitizer to, hospitals and those kind of places. They weren't giving them to all the commercial places. So, we did that. So I basically sold hand sanitizer by the gallon to whoever needed it for a very nominal profit, $10 a gallon. And I think I sold 8,000 or 9,000 gallons that year, maybe more. And I worked with one full-time guy doing jobs, and I had my other full-time guy doing sales, and the other full-time guy had basically took the year off because he didn't want to be around COVID. Coming out of COVID, in 2021, we I think so. In 2020, we did about 392,000, which I was pretty happy with, and we did almost 200,000 net, which again for a COVID year we were pretty amazed at. So, in 2021, when things finally broke, all the efforts that we had put forth that previous year seemed to really help us, because people really appreciated that we had provided them with the hand sanitizer. Our competition seemed to become less prevalent. I think a lot of our competition, which is residential companies that do some commercial, well, they were just struggling to get staff to do their own their own residential. So in that year, we did 583,000 and 365K in net profit. In 2022, we did 815 and 490 in profit. So we just kept growing and growing and taking off, and then this year was just a continuation. We ended up at 1.1 million in sales, and
So 2023, that was a big year for you, right? How did you finish up, if you don't mind sharing?
So yeah, coming off of our increases in 2022, we really were blessed that we improved almost 35% more in 2023. We ended up this year about 1.1 million in sales and almost 700,000 in net profit.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we worked extremely hard, but it was just amazing that we just kept getting requests from existing and new clients. So quite blessed, and rewarding for the amount of effort we had put in, and to see that our systems and marketing had paid off.
No, that's huge. We're recording this on January 7th, 2024. Something big happened to you and your business just literally a few days ago. Tell us about it.
Well, so partly what I had chatted about, during the COVID time, was we had no idea whether we were going to have a business. So we sat and met with our financial guy, our wealth management people, and we also met with our accountant, and asked them, where are we? Like, what's going on? Like we were so nervous, and based on how we had run our business, and also the fact that we had, I'd started investing in the 401k program when I was 20 years old, or 21, whenever I started at the stadiums. Our wealth manager told us, we're fine. Like, you don't need to worry about anything. Just don't lose any more money. And so as soon as my wife, as CFO, heard that, she was like, sell. She goes, I want out. I'm tired of this. Her exact words were, I want my garage back. So back in 2020, I knew we couldn't sell it then because we were at our business had taken a hit. But it sort of put in our mind that we were going to start looking at selling the business, and trying to enjoy life more. I have been a workaholic, and for my whole life, I started at 10 years of age delivering papers. I had 2 paper routes by the time I was 12. So, I sort of realized that whenever I'm involved with my business, I'm going to do it to the nth degree and continue to try to grow it. So, I had a long discussion with my wife, and I said, okay, I said, if we can sell it and, you know, and we're okay financially, then I'm open to that. So we started that actually during the COVID year, discussing it. We had 2 different people look at the business over the next couple of years, but it fell through. And actually, 5 months ago, I found a gentleman who was interested in buying the business and had agreed to my financial demands, so to speak, and actually started training as my ops manager. And as of last Friday, we signed the papers, and I transferred ownership to his. He is now the new owner of ReNu Surface Restoration. So I am no longer an owner of the business, but I have agreed to do sales for them for at least the next year, probably 2. And so I'm an ex-business owner.
You know what the next question is going to be, and you don't have to answer it, but I'm going to ask anyway. How much did you sell it for?
We sold it for $1 million. It was evaluated at probably 1.2 to 1.5, depending on who you were talking to, and all the different things that are taken into effect. But obviously, a business is only worth what someone's willing to pay. And I wasn't going to be greedy about it, to be honest with you. My whole goal was to turn it over to someone who could continue the business going and take care of my clients. And that's one of the reasons why I offered to continue in sales, was because I wanted them to be successful. And you have to look at things on a 3-year rolling basis. And if you look at the 3-year basis, the $1 million felt to be a fair price for both sides.
And again, taking into consideration that in 2023 you did about $1 million in sales. And what I'm trying to say is you built quite a bit of income, quite a bit of net income over the last 5 years. So that, and then topping it off with a $1 million sale, I mean, you've done very well for yourself.
No, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. Like, to be able to sell it for that amount is,
right.
I mean, like I said, there's a lot of people out there in the industry who talk about being able to sell your business, and you've got to have this, multi-truck operation, and have an office manager, and an ops manager, and I don't have any of that. I have 2 trucks, 3 employees, 3 to 4 employees. I do everything myself. My wife does the books. And again, we were able to sell it for $1 million. So obviously we're able to do that because we have built up 10 years worth of client lists, and many of our clients, we can prove that they clean year in and year out. So, and I don't have any contracts. It's just a proven sales record. And it was done through the SBA, which is not, an easy loan process. But your business is what someone's willing to pay. And the big problem with selling a business is whoever buys it has to have a certain percentage to put down, and then be able to, again, operating capital and those kind of things. So one of the reasons why I was able to sell the business is I've got that proven record. But obviously I felt it was important. I'm willing to help them with the sales. We're not even telling my clients that it's been sold. There's really no reason to it. And the gentleman that has bought it is he's been training with me for 5 months. He's doing a great job. And if I could have found someone like him all along, would I need to sell it? Maybe not, but for my lifestyle and what I want to do, we want to travel a couple of months a year. And I just felt that the easiest way to do that was to give someone a way to actually, have equity and profit in it versus a ops manager who could leave at any point and I'd have to fly back from Florida or wherever, whenever they decide to leave. So, yeah, like I said, it can be done. We're very blessed. We're very lucky. But it's definitely doable out there. I'm only sharing this not in terms of bragging or any of that. It's just to show you what's possible out there.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important for people to understand that one of the benefits of commercial, like we talked about earlier, the bigger tickets, lower cost startup, et cetera, is the fact that you have a business that's going to be easier to sell. That's going to be more desirable to a buyer versus a residential business. And I think that's hugely important. And one thing I want to mention is that we have our Encapalooza event coming up, and that's going to be in February of 2024, February 26th or 28th. And we're going to have a business broker there, one of the directors for Sunbelt Business Networks, and they'll be talking about how to prepare your business for sale and what to look at and what some of the factors are in terms of multipliers, et cetera, et cetera. So very, very good reason to attend just for that alone, let alone your presentation and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the multiplier, what we did this year, like I said, we probably should have gotten more, but you have to take several years, into account. And again, to me, look, it was a point in my life where I was ready. I'm just turned 60. I'm fine financially. I don't need to necessarily, work based on the lifestyle that myself and my wife live. So, that extra $1 million is plenty of money for me. And
I think it's important to highlight that it's not just the $1 million; it's the $1 million you made last year, or gross, I should say. And how much in 2022.
No, well, so what I have told people in the past is, look, we put the maximum amount of money we can into our 401k each year. So, that's 40 to 50 grand a year, depending on your age. So, because we did that every year, and, because I did that also my whole between 20 and age 50, our retirement is pretty good.
Substantial
Number, but we were also saving on taxes all those years, because when you're putting that money into your 401k, you're not paying, it's a pre-tax.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I try to tell people that in their businesses to put their wife on their payroll, put as much into your 401k. It's not how much money you make each year, it's how much you're putting into your retirement. And I worked for 30 years for corporations, and in 10 years for myself, I made just as much money and contributed as much to my retirement as I did in 30 years of working for someone else. So it's just how you look at things and how you plan and how you we've also taken excess money and put it into real estate investments that are earning 12 to 14% a year. So again, we can get into that in a different discussion, but my advice to a lot of these guys who are in the cleaning world is, it's not how much you make. It doesn't matter. You don't want to be paying tax if you can avoid it. Invest in your retirement, because guys who are in their 20s and 30s, when you turn 50 and 60 like me, if you've been putting all this money away for all those years, you'll be so shocked at how much money you have. And you don't need to sell your business at that point, So, I certainly don't poo-poo the owner operator who's in residential, who's making $100,000 a year. you're doing great. But I'd say, if you have the extra cash, put that 20 grand a year into your retirement. And you know what? 20 years from now, you won't care about selling your business. You really won't.
Absolutely.
Retire. But honestly, residential based businesses do not sell for what, a commercial based business will sell for. Um, in terms of the volume, like for the volume of money that we're doing and what we sold it at, you'd have to be doing a lot more in a residential type of operation.
Let's talk about Encapalooza for a moment. This will be, again, happening in February 2024, just a few weeks away from now, time of this recording. You'll be giving your commercial presentation again. We'll be talking about a lot of things in that presentation, including pricing and marketing. But let's talk about pricing just for a moment, because it's kind of a deep dive that we'll save for February.
Sure.
But something we hear all the time is, how much do you charge? And what should I charge for this? What should I charge for that? And it's just a never-ending question, the same question again and again and again. What's your formula for pricing? Just a quick idea. And again, we'll get into that more at the event, but just to kind of.
Well, again, I look at the square footage and I figure out a price based on the square footage. I look at how long it will take us to clean it. I look at soil condition. I look at the layout and type of service. So is it, all cubicles? Is it all open space? I look at, is it hot water extraction? Is it BLM? I look at travel. I look at how many visits it's going to take. I look at all those things. But the main goal for me is about how much money am I going to make per hour? And I look at this for every day of the week. I don't look at each job as a home run. I want singles and doubles every day. And I want to do it every day, all year long. I want repeat customers. A lot of these guys on Facebook, they do one job a week and brag about their price per square foot. We average, if you think about it, if we're doing $1.1 million a year, we're doing $3,000 a day over 365 days. Honestly, we clean at 20 cents per square foot for carpet and 50 cents for tile. And we're doing $1.1 million. All right. So it's not about how much you charge per square foot. It's about how much can you produce. And that's the kind of now if I go do a little office, I'm not going to charge 20 cents a square foot. But if I'm doing 30,000 square feet of open space, I'm not charging 48 cents a square foot. They're not going to accept that. And if they do, great. Next week, I'm going to come in there and take it for 20 cents. So because I can go do that 30,000 square feet, in a ridiculously quicker amount than you can hot water extracting it, and it doesn't need hot water extraction. So again, a lot of the stuff you hear on Facebook is, I'm not saying people are lying, but if you want to do commercial every day of the week, you can't be charging, that kind of rates when you're running up against people who do this every day of the week. Because if they know what they're doing, they're going to be able to produce, and they're going to be able to keep their prices lower and make tons of money at doing it that way. Now, there are times you have to charge more. There's conditions you have to charge more, and there's markets where you have to charge more. But the one thing I will tell all you guys is you need to know what your competition is charging and what your competition can do. So, because you know what, for me in my market, generally hot water extraction is going to be 20-25 cents a square foot to get most accounts. So that you can't go in at 40 cents. You're not going to get any of the jobs. But that might be different in San Diego. That might be different in New York City. So you have to look at what your competition is, figure that out, and then that will help you in terms of your pricing.
Yeah, your competition and your cost of doing business. And I think too many cleaners, unfortunately, they try to apply the residential numbers to commercial, and there's too much focus on what that per square foot
Yeah, I mean,
number is.
look,
There's too much. It's got to be 60 cents. It's got to be 40 cents. No, it really doesn't need to be that, because it's the hourly average that matters most. That's what it
well,
boils
in
down to.
residential, you're not cleaning the volume. In commercial, you're setting
That's
up.
why I was referring specifically to commercial.
Yeah, in commercial, you're setting up once a day. That's the other thing I like. I don't want to go to 3 or 4 different places a day, and I don't want to pay my guys to travel 3 or 4. I mean, we go and set up once a day, So, of course, like I said, there's things involved in my way I do things that are different than what other people would do. We do have travel, but my guys are willing to do that because they make a lot of money doing that. So you just gotta pay them to do it.
Speaking of money, you've been able to create a formula that allows for very high margin, upwards of 70%. And I know you run a pretty lean operation in terms of 2 to 3 techs plus yourself. What sort of impact has that efficiency had on your business over the years?
Well, one of the reasons we can work at such a high, net profit, and when I say the figures that I say, I will be honest, it's not including my compensation. So, we run around 60 to 65%. I think this year I looked at our end of the year, and we were at 63 or 64%. After we took some expenses at the end of the year. And that includes my compensation. So, whatever that is, whatever we decide it to be. But, if you're doing $1 million in sales and you're taking home 650, whatever that part of your compensation you want to do, that's pretty good money. Now, I've gotten questioned on that on some of the forums, because people say, oh, well, any good business can only do 20 to 30%. Well, again, if you look at the way we operate, we're doing, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. Say we're doing 2,000 square feet of carpet an hour per person. If you're charging 15 cents, just 15 cents, that's $300 an hour, right? And if you're paying your staff $25 an hour, that's 10% on your payroll, which is your biggest cost. So I just would, and I'm not here to try to convince people of my numbers. I've shared my numbers with various cleaners, and there's other cleaners out there who are doing what I've explained to them and are having similar results. So, but it's because we do such volume, and it's also because basically everything in my operation is paid for. I have no outstanding debt. All my equipment, vans, etc., are all paid for. So I can run at that percentage when you have you have very low overhead costs. I have no office staff, and I don't pay for any marketing. And I have basically a simple website that I pay $50 a month to host. So when you have very, very low overhead and very low payroll percentages, it's pretty easy to see where these numbers come from.
Absolutely. We'll be talking about that a lot more at Encapalooza. I want to emphasize that again. But there's something new coming up that's called On Track. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody about that?
Well, so, one of the things I think, Damon, how long has it been? 3 or 4 years we've been doing these seminars and stuff in Vegas. 6 years ago, I joined Pad Life Group, and again, I started with Joel Riggs, Ashley McHenry. There's a few other guys that I did. When I first started this business, I talked to over 100. Mark Sager. I talked tons and tons of cleaners, and I didn't know everything. I didn't pretend to, so I asked a lot of questions, and got a lot of great information, and I've learned an awful lot. And then Pad Life came along, and I met Damon and started bending his ear, and we became friendly, and obviously Damon identified that I sort of had developed this niche in the commercial cleaning industry. So he asked me if I would mind coming and chatting at one of his events. So since then,
That would be this Damon, by the way. Oh, go
what's
ahead.
that?
I said that's this Damon that's talking right
Yes.
now.
Is there any other Damons?
Who knows?
Matt Damon, maybe?
Yeah, there you go. I wish.
So anyways, that's how I got started. And I also had spent some time trying to help my fellow Masters Touch cleaners with VLM in the beginning. I actually tried to get Masters Touch to promote VLM as part of their package, which fell on deaf ears. But the reason why I did that was because I realized that tiling grout cleaning alone was going to be a tough road to hoe for beginning cleaners. But so I started doing some of these seminar stuff with Damon, and enjoyed it. And then a bunch of people have been reaching out to me over the years and asking me for input and ideas and different things. So now that I have more time, obviously, Damon and I have discussed the possibility of starting a program to help fellow cleaners. And one of the biggest problems we've seen with cleaners is accountability. They just don't stay on track, so to speak, with whatever they're doing. So what we're going to do is develop this program to work with other cleaners who want help and assistance with staying on track with their efforts, to develop more of their commercial cleaning in their operations. And that's sort of what we're going to do. And we're going to make it an affordable program that we do on a weekly basis to, keep you guys, again, on track with your efforts, and hopefully help you guys grow your business from a commercial standpoint.
I think it's going to be huge for the people that participate. I believe many will, and I believe all of those that actually follow up and do everything that's requested and do everything that they set their minds to do will find success. There's a ticker at the bottom of the screen. I've been running it throughout the podcast, but if you go to on-track.business, you can learn more about the program and get more information, and it's going to be starting soon. And we're very excited about it. I think it'll be, again, a great platform for cleaners to really build and grow their commercial business, whether they be an upstart, an intermediate cleaner, like say for the last 2 to 5 years, or even veteran cleaners. All will benefit from what this program has to offer. Let's talk about people that are struggling. Right now, there'll be people watching this that are maybe having a hard time, whether it be getting commercial accounts, even building their residential business, wherever they're at in their business. What would be some advice you'd give to them? Just some quick talking points that they can maybe walk away with this with before On Track or before Encapalooza, and just something to think about.
Well, again, I'll just tell you what I did. I started from scratch. I had no customers. I had no experience. I mean, if you're already in the business, you at least have experience. And if you have a business card, and if you have a brochure on top of that, you've got what you need to start getting commercial clients. My first suggestion to you would be is rather than sitting at home and waiting for the phone to ring, would be to go out and start stopping into local businesses and dropping off your business card, introducing yourself, telling them what you offer, asking them if they need help, and waiting for what they have to say. If there is someone that is not there, get the business card and send them a follow-up email introducing yourself. That alone is very simple, easy to do. but you'll be surprised that if you go out and do that on a consistent basis, you will find there are people out there who need some help.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Steve, let me just say congratulations on your success. Congratulations on building what's been an incredibly profitable operation, and also what you've done to help other cleaners, I think is tremendous. And I'm very happy that you've been able to sell the business and have more time to do things that you enjoy. And I think On Track's going to be very beneficial to the cleaners out there. And I think in Encapalooza coming up, On Track and Encapalooza coming up next month will be a must-attend event for cleaners. We've had well over 100 signups already, more coming in daily. And I'm looking forward to it. I know you are as well.
Yeah, again, for me, like I said, there's been a ton of people who've given their time to me over the years and helped me to get to the level of success that I was able to attain. And I enjoy giving back to other cleaners. So, and I also obviously enjoy helping you, Damon. I think that, you are an incredible resource for cleaners. I think your group Pad Life and Cap Store, you have great products, you have great service. A lot of the reason I'm doing this is obviously to help you as well as, for myself. I would just tell all of you out there that are listening, this is not something that I'm doing for a for-profit monetary, is not my first goal. It's really to give back and help other cleaners. And it's because there's so few people in the industry that are taking advantage, of the commercial platform. So if it's something you're interested in, we'd love to help you, come to Encapalooza, or take part in the On Track program if that's right for you. We're going to price it in a very economical way, because it's not something where we're trying to take advantage of cleaners. It's really a program to help. But thank you, Damon, for the opportunity to share this information. And, I look forward to working with my fellow cleaners in the future if that's what they desire. But, I'll keep presenting the information on Pad Life, whether they do or not. And, good luck to everybody.
Steve, thanks for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. I think this was a great podcast, and I think people will really benefit from the information that you shared today. And we'll be talking soon. We'll see you next month.
Go Bills.
Go
Bills.
Good luck with that. Yep.
All right.
We'll talk soon. Goodbye.
Thanks.